Welcome to the Grassroots Army Podcast. This platform is for common sense people looking for up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information without the hot garbage corporate media bias. The power of one can lead to the power of many. You never know what small act that you may say or do that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. And don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can. Good morning, my fellow Michiganders. Good morning, my fellow Americans, and welcome to the Grassroots Army Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Garrett Soldano, and today I have Mr. Kevin Kijewski on, who has just announced his run for Attorney General. So before I bring Kevin on, I want to give you a little bit of background about him. I have it all typed up right here for you today. He is a Birmingham attorney. He is the first Republican to announce his candidacy for the Michigan Attorney General in obviously the next election cycle. And there's not a lot of people that are rumored to be running right now. So getting him this platform and allowing him to get on here and tell us what he stands for and what he has done, because a lot of you who've been following me over the past several years, you're going to remember some of the things he has done because we talked about it at some very important times during the pandemic, as we call it. But he has represented Clifford Frost, one of the defendants in Michigan's fake elector case, where the individuals, if you remember, falsely claimed Donald Trump won the 2020 election. Kijewski has also emphasized his commitment to fighting corruption, which all of us want, prosecuting crime and ensuring election integrity, which we're all very passionate about. But before entering politics, he served as the superintendent of Catholic schools for the Archdiocese of Detroit, overseeing 86 schools and 27,000 students. That's a lot of management. He holds a law degree from Michigan State University and a master's degree in education from the University of Notre Dame. As a fellow Catholic, go Catholics. He's married and has one daughter. But this is what we're going to talk about. I want to ask him about this because I just had a great conversation with him before he got on today. He was in the legal battle during the COVID-19 pandemic, organizing federal litigation to challenge school closures as vice chair of the Michigan Association of Non-Public Schools. So if you remember, they were pushing to get the schools open. And when they were about basically going to get a great decision, mysteriously, the data changed and Governor Whitmer opened up the schools so she wouldn't lose face. You guys remember that? I sure in the heck do. So without further ado, let's bring my man, Mr. Kevin Kijewski, to the show. Welcome.
Hey, great to be with you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And just like we talked about before, when I was doing a little bit of research and that came up, all that kind of refreshed in my memory about what Governor Whitmer did in the past with the school closures, with canceling athletics, with hammering down on restaurants and everything else. And I was like, man, I remember this guy. And I remember that lawsuit because you guys were pushing the envelope, as they say, and you pushed her basically to say the data has changed, right? Science has changed and we're going to open schools now.
Yeah, I mean, look, our kids need to be in school so that they can learn, they can grow up and function as adults inevitably. We don't need to have these draconian measures, these school closures, because we have supposed experts that know better than parents and what our local communities want, right? So I had enough. I mean, the first time that the closure happened, no one truly knew what was going on, right? I could give a little bit of a leeway or some pass to that. But the second time, November of 2020, she's like, oh, the high schools, they're basically super spreaders. And I'm like, well, I don't know what you're looking at, but you don't get to trample on the Constitution. So we brought forward litigation in U.S. District Court in the Western District of Michigan. And inevitably, we were going to get a very favorable opinion. We took a look at those oral arguments in front of the judge. The AG's office at the time, of course, representing the governor and the state, they didn't really do a wonderful job. And just hours before we were supposed to get our decision, essentially, Governor Whitmer, as you said the science and the evidence have changed. And she's trying to save face. She didn't want to lose power. And when it comes to governance, I don't care if you're the Attorney General, Secretary of State, or taking a look at any other elected office. It's not about power. The whole goal of being in government is to help your fellow citizens and not trying to sort of just exert your power over them. So I was very happy and very proud to be part of that. And that was several years ago. And a lot of other things have happened since then, too.
Yeah, I mean, COVID is my wheelhouse, obviously.
Right.
And I can go all day and for hours talking about everything that they said that was untrue and the science and so-called data and everything else. And it's whenever I start talking about it, it just brings up a lot of bad memories. And just like everything we were standing up ever since the beginning has been proven 100% to be right. And there's a lot of stuff that's starting to get uncovered now, right? There's a lot of things that are starting to come to light. And I think people get burnt out with this stuff and they just kind of want to sweep it underneath the rug and they don't want to talk about it anymore. And I refuse to quit talking about it because there has to be some sort of accountability, because I think as Americans, especially in Michigan, what we went through, we have all these people have done all these things and not follow the Constitution and, drop the hammer with their draconian measures. And then, once they lose in the Supreme Court, then they weaponize the health department and they hold our licenses over our heads. And it just goes on and on with the corruption, with no accountability, especially with the elites, as we call them, with the public figures or the political people. And I think we're just so fed up with it, Kevin. I mean, so my first question to you as one of your constituents is, you spoke a lot because I watched several of your interviews that you've been doing on social media, which we're going to get into your social media here in a second. But you've come out and say, hey, we need to end the corruption in Lansing. And when someone says that, I get excited. But that's kind of the same talking point we hear from both sides. We're talking to Bernie Sanders. He's on the oligarchy kind of scene right now with everything. He's a threat to democracy, as they say about President Trump. But what specific steps are you going to do? Okay, you get through the delegate race, you win the primary, you get through the general, win the general. Day one, what are you going to do to investigate and prosecute, if we have reasons to prosecute, governmental officials who have abused their power, regardless of political affiliation? Because in Michigan, it's a good old boys and good old girls club in Lansing, right? It's not Republican or Democrat. There's a lot of corruption on both sides of the aisle. I always make that point because they always call me a far right cringe Republican. I'm like, I'm kind of a moderate, all right? I just want to do what's right. So day one, brother, what are your goals and what are you going to bring to light?
So a few things will happen on day one. So first, we're going to be doing a lot of investigations in the sense of starting them because they haven't been going on. Investigations that will commence on day one or very soon thereafter will be into election integrity issues. We're going to be taking a look as well regarding the weaponization of the government that was essentially put forward by the current Attorney General. And I'm not saying she did anything criminal right now. I know that we don't like it, but I want to do an actual thorough investigation to see exactly what was going on, what the intent was. Because we have something here called an abusive process. It's both a tort in addition to an actual criminal offense. But I just want to see what's going on because my whole goal is not to throw folks in jail. My whole goal is really, number one, accountability, but also number two, to ensure stuff like this never happens again. I don't care if someone's Republican, Democrat, Independent. So we're going to have a lot of investigations that will open up immediately. Second, I'm going to make sure that when it comes to the legislature, if they still don't have the documents that they subpoenaed for by that time, I'm going to make sure that we're going to make them whole. They're going to get those documents, whether that's the stuff that the legislature wants from Jocelyn Benson or from, frankly, the Attorney General or even the governor's office. They're entitled to get it. I don't know why that they have to sort of drag everything out other than for political expediency, but that needs to end. And then third, we're going to have to really start to restructure how the Attorney General's office works, okay? I mean, it's frankly the largest law firm by attorney size in the whole entire state. Bigger than Butzel Long, bigger than Bodman, all these other large, relatively large law firms. You have, almost 300 attorneys that work over there. We got to make sure that we reorganize them to work on priorities that really matter. Not going after, for example, political persecutions and prosecutions and chasing imaginary crimes. So that's one of the bigger things, I think. It can't happen, all on day one regarding the reorg, but we have to be intentional, plan for it, and then start those steps. because personnel is policy. I mean, you spoke about, for example, the Archdiocese of Detroit when I was superintendent. We had almost 90 schools. That means almost 90 principals. Those are the people that actually have their butts in the seats that make things work. The same thing when you take a look at the Attorney General's office, whether they're leading divisions or they're line prosecutors, we have to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So reorg, investigate, or start an investigation, and also comply with the legislature. They're the people that make the laws. It's not me. It's not the Attorney General right now. So we got to give them the information that they need so that they can effectively do their job.
Yeah, and people have to understand, like, we are an instant gratification society, and everything that you just said that you're going to do is going to take months, if not years. So people don't understand when you're doing an investigation, especially a thorough one, you have to make sure all your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, everything is done correctly, so you get a verdict and you get a positive verdict in your favor if there was crime or something else that has happened, or accountability. And I think that's where a lot of frustration is. People have been abused for so long, and these corrupt politicians on both sides of the aisles have done a lot of this, and there hasn't been a lot of accountability. And you see them even turn on like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and they're coming out there and say, hey, it's coming, but folks, it takes time, and you got to be patient. And people, we want it now. We want, trials and everything else. Like, it's going to take time. So everything that you say that you're going to do, it's months, if not years, to go through, right?
And to your point really quickly, so I have lots of friends I speak with all across the state that are kind of frustrated with Pam Bondi and others. I'm like, look, that's the federal system. The federal system, you actually have to do a grand jury in order to get an indictment. That's a longer process. And even before that, of course, you need a thorough investigation. I mean, Trump just finished up 100 days ago, not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
And Bondi hasn't been on the job quite 100 days either, because she got confirmed a little bit later. So they can take a little bit longer. I understand. And one of the bigger reasons is not just because they got all those procedures and policies and whatever, but as you said, you got to make sure that you do a thorough enough job so that you don't get it overturned on appeal. Nothing worse than putting in months or years, and then you have a Court of Appeals judge or a Supreme Court justice says, oh, I'm throwing this out because you missed this. The good news is that here in Michigan, regarding investigations, I think we know generally what we're going to be looking for. We know where to look. We know the people that really have to give us information and that we really need to talk to. And I'm also very happy that the House Weaponization Subcommittee right now, they're gathering a lot of this information and they're doing some stuff. They can't obviously prosecute, but that will help inevitably when it comes to the investigation later on. We can build upon the work that they are doing right now. So when people are looking at the House Weaponization Subcommittee and they're like, where is this going to lead to? I can tell you where it's going to lead to. It's going to help with investigations and law enforcement later on down the road, hopefully January 1st of 2027.
Yes, absolutely. And I think like patience, people have to be patient with this process. And like what you just said, with the amount of work and tax-paying dollars that you're going to have to use to build a successful case, nothing's going to hurt us all is if it gets overturned in an appeal. So that totally makes sense.
Amen.
So I'm going to play a little devil's advocate right now,
Sure.
Because when you look at the state of Michigan and what it's been kind of being ruled under is what I used to call the trifecta. Some people have called them the three witches, right? But it was the trifecta of three people who were from the same party who have kind of teamed up and just brought the hammer down on all of us. So let's go back all the way. And let's say you're the Attorney General, Governor Whitmer, and it's Jocelyn Benson, right? All the way back from the very beginning of the pandemic, which I agree with what you said in the beginning of the interview, where you said, everyone kind of gets a get out of jail free card with the pandemic because nobody really knew what the pandemic was going to be. Even when I initially stood up on April 9th, I just, with my healthcare background and my science and education, I just knew that how viruses work, and this didn't make sense, and what they were saying wasn't really happening. So I had a little bit different belief system and a little bit knowledge and wisdom. So that gave me the ability to stand up. But a lot of people even people who have joined me now and saying, holy cow, in the beginning, we thought you were a nutbag, like you were going to bring the plague down on humanity, and you've been proven to be right, blah, 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 blah. But, as we got into, I would say, May and June of 2020, especially when we saw other states who I believe that were doing it correctly. Like I think it was North Dakota, right, with Governor Nome. And we had Florida slowly opening up, and COVID hell was upon them and everything else. So we had other states that was starting to slowly open up. And then Governor Whitmer in the early part of the summer, especially during the Floyd protest, which then it was okay to be outside, right?
Yeah,
it's healthy to protest, but after the protest, you need to go back into lockdown. But what would you have done? What would you have done in that process from May and June, where you're starting to say, okay, this isn't making sense, and now we start going into the fall, where you're like, okay, these are unconstitutional. What are we doing here? What could you have done, and what would you have done?
So if I were Attorney General at that time, with the fact pattern that the Secretary of State and the governor are Democrat and I'm a Republican, I'm not there to play partisan politics. I'm here to represent, as the Attorney General, the people of the state of Michigan. The people of the state of Michigan are my clients. That's how that works. So I have to look out for their best interests, and I have to uphold and protect their rights in addition to the law. So if that means that, frankly, the governor wants to do some type of draconian executive order, follow really bad advice from her advisors, I would have a duty to try to tell her first, Madam Governor, you probably want to pursue this differently. This very well could be interpreted by the courts as an abuse of power, which, of course, we all know later on it was, right? Yeah. But let's put it this way. Let's say she would say, oh, Kevin, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do, or go pound sand. Well, then I can actually institute litigation against the governor of the state of Michigan. A lot of people think you can't do things like that, but you can, because the governor, perhaps sometimes and a lot of times, the Attorney General will represent the governor's office in various forms of litigation, lawsuits, or whatever. And that's true. But ultimately, if they're going to be a threat to the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens, if they're doing something so weird or wrong, you have a duty to stand up. And I would, if I were Attorney General at that time, would have challenged the governor first privately, and then if it needed to happen, then publicly through litigation. Because it took a while, as you know, for the Michigan Supreme Court to get this and then sort of kind of draw back her executive powers that she can have. Well, I would have liked to have done something much earlier. And if Attorney General Nessel would have faithfully looked at the law and looked at essentially what the Constitution says that we need to do, she would have advised the governor to do something different, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. So that's what I would do different. I would try to stop it right away.
Yeah, especially when she weaponized the health department. And she started, going after the restaurant owners like Marlena, like the Iron Pig, he's still in litigation. He's still fighting, right? Ian from the Iron Pig up in Gaylord with 2 locations, and he's got some bourbon coming out. I think it's already out. But especially with the weaponization of the health department. So obviously you're saying that you would stand for the Constitution, which we all appreciate, obviously, because it's about checks and balances in our government. Right. There's separation of branches for a reason. You just don't get to all team up. Right. You do what the Constitution has been written, and you follow that. What about with, as we move into some of the, and I remember, I think 2020 to 2021 with some of the non-compete with the unemployment agency, with Hertel. There was a lot of shady things going on where they were basically trying to hide all the decision making in the background of what was done. And these people start getting out because the jig was up. People are starting to notice this wasn't right. We shouldn't have done this. What could you have done differently at that time? Because they just said, hey, it's a non-compete, or is that what it was? What was it? Do you remember? I don't know if it was a non-compete. It was
non-disclosure or something.
Non-disclosure. I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Yep. So is there anything you could have done with that?
Yeah, I think that all of these individuals, and again, it would depend upon the case, would be subject to whistleblower protections. And that means whether we take a look under state law, there's also some elements of federal law, perhaps, that could be applicable here. I would try to protect those individuals so that they would have the ability to speak and actually say what they think is wrong. And not necessarily share, classified, top secret information. I mean, I don't think that the governor or anyone else in the state government, with the exception of maybe some people in the National Guard, have a top security clearance. But like, people need to be able to speak their mind. And that's why we have these whistleblower protections. We shouldn't try to enforce these non-disclosure agreements or whatever else. We should actually say, let's put it out there in the open. And that's the thing. People want to sort of hide the ball all the time. Happens in Lansing, happens in county politics, happens in city politics. It's just give me what I want, instant gratification. But if there's accountability or something that, people shouldn't see because it would sort of be adverse to me, I got to hide this. And that's not what we're really here to do. I mean, one of the things I want to do, like I said originally, is to start a lot of these investigations in the Attorney General's office to see what the hell has been going on over the past, not just 4 years, but the past 8 years, and make sure that we're not going to repeat the same mistakes again. And unfortunately, unless we're able to take a look into this, we're going to repeat these mistakes. And unless people are able to speak their minds and have whistleblower protections, we're not going to have the information that we need. So I would absolutely, for those folks, for the most part, and again, it's very fact specific, I would try to get them those whistleblower protections and try to overcome those non-disclosure clauses that they have. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for correcting me, by the way.
Oh, no, you're good.
Two things that are hot items, not only I think in America, but in Michigan, with the thousands of families who have lost their loved ones in nursing homes. And it's amazing because they're kind of going out their Cuomo right now, but there are several other governors. I think the governor of Pennsylvania, Newsom in California, Whitmer, obviously, Cuomo, and I think the New Jersey governor did it too. Forgot his name. But with the nursing homes, putting COVID-infected elderly into nursing homes, resulting in the deaths of thousands, and they tried to cover it up.
Yeah.
And they skewed the data.
Right.
And a lot of these people I have talked to, I have hugged, I have, over my run for governor, it was very emotional when you hear these people's stories on, not being able to say goodbye and having their loved ones die alone. I couldn't imagine any horrible way to die than to die alone away from your family, especially when it wasn't warranted. Those people have not had any accountability. They just continue to pass the buck. Are you willing to open up an investigation to look into that?
100%, because again, I don't have the exact number, but the things I've read and the things I've seen, COVID deaths in nursing homes were underreported by like 40 or 43%.
Yeah, correct.
We're talking about thousands and thousands of, grandparents, whether it's your grandpa, grandma, uncle, aunt, whatever. And we got to make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen again. Obviously, we can't bring these people back, but these people deserve, in the sense of their surviving family, closure, and they deserve respect. So I would investigate that, and I am planning to do that really day one as part of the investigations. What the hell happened? My understanding is that the Attorney General did some investigation. Those results have not necessarily really been publicly 100% available. We just sort of more so have the conclusion, and she's like, oh, nothing happened here. And correct. I'm not saying that, someone did something criminal, but we at least should take a look into it, a deep dive. And again, we have to learn from the past. My undergraduate history degree tells me that, because if we don't know our history, we're going to continue repeating the same mistakes. So we have to make sure that we don't have a situation where you got a loved one, they're about to pass, but you only see them through a phone. Or could you imagine you're like sort of like there at a window and I've seen those pictures, people putting up their hands. Why? Because the governor thinks, well, this is the easiest thing for me to do while I go boating with my husband or whatever else. And I'm, not going to abide by rules for myself, but I'm going to make everyone else abide by these draconian rules. This needs to stop.
It does. And I think that's what people want. It's just the truth.
Yeah.
Like, if you just give us the truth, people will give you grace. But when you deny it, cover it up, try to bury it, then activate your corporate media and social media to censor anyone and deplatform anyone that brings it up and talks about it. And that's been proven to be fact, right? Yeah. That's where people get upset. And I'm upset. And these people who have lost loved ones are extremely upset, obviously. And like you said, they deserve closure. And whatever that accountability looks like, there has to be something done for these folks to get that kind of closure. And
on that point, if I may, we also need to have closure and accountability for the Flint water crisis too. Very similar, because the Attorney General, once she took over from Bill Schuette, there were lots of prosecutions in the pipeline. You actually even had some plea deals. And what did she do with all of these prosecutions? She dismissed them for whatever reason. And then inevitably, oh no, the statute of limitations ran out, so you can never hold these people accountable. What are you trying to do? And I believe that the House Weaponization Subcommittee, they're trying to get that information as to how those decisions were made. And there's a lot of pushback. So that's one thing I would want to do. And again, I want to look into this along with everyone else so we don't repeat the same damn mistakes. And that's what's happening here in Michigan. I mean, you would think that they learn after the first 4 years. Nope, we're just going to continue, rinse, repeat, for the second 4 years.
And you're exactly right. And that's where people have to understand the corruption is just not Democrats. It's both sides of the aisle. Yeah. It's both Republicans and Democrats. And that's why we're getting everyone that stays silent. I mean, Benton Harbor had their own Flint water crisis, right? Benton Harbor, Michigan. They dealt with the same thing. And that was kind of just swept underneath the rug and nobody talked about it. And the corporate media didn't talk about it. And people got hurt because of it. Another thing that's very hot in the media right now, and then President Trump weighed in, I think either yesterday or the day before, about January 6th and the FBI who was involved, a lot of agents. And I've been very involved with January 6th, interviewing people, especially Jeremy Brown, who is falsely imprisoned, former Green Beret Jeremy Brown. He's going to come back on the podcast. I interviewed him from prison. He was one of the very few that decided he was not going to settle with the FBI. He was going to fight, and he stayed in jail for years, refusing, and they finally let him out with the Trump pardon. But with the FBI being at January 6th, we're going to get that here in a second, but more importantly, the supposed FBI kidnapping plot of Governor Whitmer, which it looks like the FBI was also involved. What is your, number one, what are your thoughts on that? And what are you willing to do when you get elected?
Yeah, so I take a look at this, kidnapping plot. Some people were convicted, other people were exonerated. One thing that immediately comes to mind is our current Attorney General. She was caught on video, and it's all over the Detroit News, CNN. I think the video is still out there. She's like, oh, the people in the kidnapping case that were essentially found not guilty, that's only because you had misinformed Republican jurors in that Republican county. I'm paraphrasing, but basically that's what she said. That's absolutely wrong. That shows that in terms of the prosecutions, there's a political scope and a political animus. You have, essentially you're laser focused on your ideology, which is absolutely wrong. So when it comes to any of these other individuals that have been convicted, well, let's take a look and see exactly to the extent that the FBI was involved. And I'm not saying that there was entrapment or anything, but that's possible. What else was going on there? Was it just more so people talking or kind of trying to let out steam because of all the stuff that's going on? Or was there really a vicious, vindictive, awful plot that was about to be executed or going to be executed? I mean, I don't know, right? But one thing I do know is that when we take a look at, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and then take a look at Bongino, and you take a look at Kash Patel, both of those gentlemen at the FBI, I'm sure that they would be able to share a lot of information so that we can take appropriate action here. And again, this is just all politicization. This is all politics, how all of this emerged. I mean, again, you got a woman that wants to perhaps run for president. I don't have a green folder. I'm sorry, I don't have a blue folder here, but I got a green book, and she was like holding this up, so embarrassed. Well, I would be embarrassed too with a lot of the things that she has been doing regarding trying to make herself look like she's a victim of all of these terrible people. No, these people are frustrated. Okay. If these people have done something truly illegal, then fine. But, people got exonerated, and it's not like, you're this martyr that you're trying to make yourself out to be. The last time I saw the governor in person, she didn't see me, but I saw her. I was in the audience. There's this show on NPR called Wait, Don't Tell Me. It's kind of a news quiz show, whatever. they do like a live taping. They go around, whatever. It's like a nerd thing. So I went with some of my family, and we're watching this, and she was the guest speaker for that. And we're like, oh, okay. So they got like a guest person to answer questions, and they're all asking, are you going to run for president? And everyone's like applauding. I was actually in there, and I'm leaning over to my family members. I'm like, she's never going to be president. You know why? Because of all the things we've been talking about. Number one, she has really not been honest with the, American people, and more so the Michiganders here about the COVID situation. She hasn't been doing a great job when it comes to actually promoting peace and security here. And she has been trying to hide the ball. So she won't be president. And I think this was the last nail in the coffin, putting that stupid folder in front of her face in the Oval Office. I mean, that's just terrible. I don't know.
It's funny you said that, because I just went to my Twitter account, because she posted yesterday on her X that Michigan is showing the nation how to put aside our differences and unite under shared value. We want to get things done. I will work with anyone who shares that sentiment. Michiganders don't want petty fights. They want food on the table and money back in their pockets. And I replied and said, funny, how our nanny governor has changed her tune lately. Rumor has it that Trump is looking into the kidnapping case. Maybe they should also look into nursing home deaths. But it's funny that she said she's willing to work with anyone. She wasn't willing to work with our legislature. She was bypassing the legislature during the pandemic and ruling unilaterally, because the legislature is like, no, we're not going to extend the emergency order. And she's like, oh, I'm just going to sign an executive order of the 1945 law, I think, at the time. And that's a frustrating part, because the majority of people aren't involved in politics, obviously, like you and I. And I see it in my neighborhood. These folks just want to be left alone, go to their job, and they'll kick and scream when it affects them. But pretty much people want to be kept out. And they'll read something like that and like, oh man, Governor Whitmer, she wants to unite. And I'm kicking and screaming, going, no, the woman is horrible. You understand, don't you remember? And that's the insanity of people in these political kind of the culture that it is. It's frustrating. And thank God, Kevin, Elon Musk bought Twitter. I've said this numerous times, because I don't think, number one, President Trump would have won, because any time in the past, and I think that's what was wrong with the Democrat Party, and we look at this last election cycle, they did it again when truly the majority of America, the popular vote, along with the Electoral College, wanted President Trump's policies in.
Right.
You would think the Democrats would have went back and said, hey, whoa, we just lost a popular vote. Like, what are we standing for that the majority of Americans don't really want? Well, I mean, you and I can talk. It's boys and girls locker rooms and restrooms, and it's letting millions of illegal immigrants into the country, and it's men competing in women's sports, and this radical indoctrination that's been proven to happen in our public schools. The list goes on. And you would think they would say, you know what, maybe we should get back to our old kind of ways, like the JFK Kennedy ways, or even Bill Clinton, right? Yeah. Who would probably be considered a moderate Republican in today's standards. But they didn't. They doubled down with their insanity. And I'm like, great, this just gives us messaging. So if we just unite as a party, I mean, we should dominate the ticket up and down, because they have not let up. They have doubled down. And I think the reason they have done that, because in their mind, Kevin, they have built a certain reality on social media, because social media is not reality. People tend to think it is, but it's not. And they thought everything that they're standing for, because people like me were deplatformed and censored and not allowed to hold people accountable, they weren't allowing that to happen on a lot of these social media accounts. We saw it with the Hunter Biden laptop. We saw it with COVID. We saw it with the vaccine and the mandates. We saw it with the mask. We saw it with ivermectin. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And they created this reality. Now here comes Elon Musk, and he allows freedom of speech to happen. And if you want to be entertained, because you're going to start your X platform soon, right?
That's right.
You go on X and you look at Governor Whitmer and Jocelyn Benson and Dana Nessel. When they post something, I just get the bowl of popcorn out and read the comments, because they get attacked and they get held accountable. You go back 5 years ago, it wasn't like that. It was all love and support and everything else. So the Democrats have a hole to get out of, and the Republicans have an opportunity to really make sure that we win up and down the ticket, to make sure President Trump can continue his agenda, because that's how important 2026 is. We always say this. I know people get sick of hearing this. like this next election cycle is very important. It could be the downfall of the country. But unfortunately, 2026 is, because if we don't win back and keep the House and Senate, they're going after President Trump. They're going to impeach. Everything stops that he's trying to do. Congress is still on their ass, not doing anything with getting the stuff in the law, which is concerning all these executive orders, because they're just going to switch it. So my question to you is this. Number one, with the power of the Attorney General's office, with everything that the Democrats have done, how are you going to defend Michigan families, specifically the radical agendas that have been force-fed down not only these kids' throats, but the parents' throats in these school systems? And I know with your background in the Catholic schools and what you have done, very impressive, by the way, but how are you going to stand up for the parents?
I'm going to make an announcement on your show, and for all your listeners right now and visitors to your platform, I did not speak with him about this in advance. So I'm glad that you asked the question. One of the things I'm going to do on day one, or shortly thereafter, is open up a brand new unit within the office or department of the Attorney General regarding parent and student rights. And this very much is going to be modeled after what has happened in Florida when the brand new Attorney General took over after the prior Attorney General got appointed to the Senate. He opened up that particular division. I'm like, what a great idea. So, I've been looking at that. I've been reading stuff about what they're doing. And very similar, I like to set up the exact same unit here, because we shouldn't have people, for example, I live here in Oakland County in Birmingham, and just north of me a little bit is Rochester. During the pandemic, oh my gosh, Rochester Community Schools, they excoriated parents and they try to make them look like terrorists and, they're the most ignorant, evil people in the world. That
they
needs
still
to
do.
stop. Yeah, they still do. Right.
That is like, I'm sorry, I'm getting very passionate now, because I've been calling out these people for years. Like Rochester schools, people don't understand. That is like my top 5 worst school boards in the country. And there's some very bad ones out there that I've been highlighting, but Rochester is a bad one.
Right. And, again, the Catholic school system, and when we take a look at, how the Catholic Church looks at education, the parents are the primary educator of the children. That's actually written in something called the Code of Canon Law. It's right there, black and white. Obviously, I'm not bringing that over here to the civil realm, but I can say that when it comes to our government and, the people here in Michigan, that's common sense. Parents direct the education of their children, and they shouldn't be vilified because they want to make sure that their sons and daughters are protected, that they're not being force-fed all of this garbage regarding gender ideology. And, this is okay if you want to perhaps transition, but not tell your parents. And I'm like, what is this? This needs to stop. So creating that brand new division in the Department of Attorney General for student and parental rights is not only to perhaps protect folks and perhaps file litigation, but also put together policies that can be promulgated to every single LEA or local education agency throughout the state about how they should pursue things. Another thing that maybe your listeners, they may know, may not know, but I'll just say here, the Attorney General's office, they do a lot of things. But one thing they do in particular, and it has, I think, a lot of importance, is they issue something called Attorney General opinions. So it's essentially a written opinion about how to take a look at a statute, a law, a situation, and generally what the framework should be. It's not like, the Supreme Court doing case law, but, this can go a long way. And frankly, when we look at parental and student rights, I want to have some probably Attorney General opinions that focus upon the rights of, all of our, parents, all of our students, and say this is how we need to approach this statute or this law or this case so that we protect the rights of all Michiganders and specifically our parents.
To everything you just, it's awesome, by the way. Thank you for talking about that. That gets me excited as one of your constituents because, we're not doing good in education. I think we're 44th in the nation in literacy. Kevin Rinke, we're going to talk about the governor's race here in a second, has been very passionate about education, especially literacy. He's always talked about it. He's talked about it before in his previous run for governor, and we're in trouble. We are really, really in trouble. Our kids are in trouble, and there is a combination of things going on, not only with COVID and the lockdowns, but the radical ideology with the bloated administration that's happening in schools, and the money's not going down to the kids. It's going into the administrators' pockets, and it just goes on and on and on. So there has to be obviously some changes. So I'm so happy to hear that you're willing to do something like that. And to me, that's just common sense. It truly is. I mean, that's just doing what's right. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people are looking for. Let's go into the legal immigration thing too.
Sure.
And if you need to cut out, you let me know, because I know you have a couple things you got to go.
No, that's okay. I have my next thing in a little bit more than an hour, so we got plenty of time.
All right, perfect. With the illegal immigration, with the tens of millions of people that we know about who have come over here illegally, President Trump is doing his thing with trying to deport a lot of these people, the violent criminals first. Sanctuary cities, right? So we have a lot of these local commissions, city commissions that are we're going to be sanctuary cities. What can you do about that?
Well, I mean, people can yell and scream and say whatever they want. My only concern is whether or not they follow the law. And the law here in the United States is that you need to be in this country legally. And if you're not, and there's an order of deportation, or if the federal government is trying to adjudicate your status to be here, well, the federal government should be allowed to do their job. My understanding, these are just estimates from various studies, there's around, perhaps in the state of Michigan, 100,000 illegal immigrants right now. That's the estimate. And they're in all various parts of the state. Some of them dangerous, some of them not, right? But what we need to do, and I would do this as Attorney General, is to talk to all of our local law enforcement agencies, our sheriffs across the state, Michigan State Troopers, and say, look, we're not here to exactly round people up. I mean, that's the federal government's job, but we're here to assist. Do not get in the way. Right. There are other things that we can do too. I mean, one of the big concerns, and I don't mean to sort of get a little bit too pie in the sky, but it is a concern that doesn't get a lot of attention. Where are these individuals going to be housed? Right. So if they're waiting for deportation orders or to have their rights adjudicated, and we can't necessarily trust them sort of like on their own recognizance being out there in the population, where do you put them? There's only so much space that the federal government has. I would be encouraging our local counties, if they do have space in their jails, to allow for the kind of detention of these individuals while their rights are being adjudicated. And they can actually make some money from that too. I mean, we can cooperate with them. Doesn't mean we have to, have stormtroopers going on the streets throughout all the homes or whatever else for everyone. No, but we should not be getting in the way. And that means when it comes to sanctuary cities, you need to follow the law. And if a city has a policy that ends up sort of getting in the way of law enforcement, well, then I think that the president of the United States has every ability to say, and I think he's absolutely correct, well, that particular city, municipality, whatever, they can lose their federal funding. I mean, why are we throwing good money, money that we're actually printing up through a printing press or borrowing from foreign countries? Why are we throwing money at people who don't want to follow the law? And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. So as Attorney General, even though we don't necessarily prosecute, or they don't prosecute, immigration crimes, we're going to certainly be a partner with our law enforcement agencies at the federal level, because they're going to have partners here at the state level.
Yeah, and to hit on the blue, I mean, the police officers, the men and women, they have the culture of that career is so hard. I mean, I have a criminal justice background. I went through the police academy when I was in college. I was going to become a state trooper. God had other plans for me, but I have a lot of police officer friends, and to always bring up and talk about what the culture was back in the early 2000s and now is night and day. I would not want to be a police officer in today's climate. Like, they have scared these men and women so much that they hesitate, and when you hesitate, people die. And
right.
It's very frustrating to watch how everyone turns on them, and we're not getting the quality of people that should be in these positions, because back when we were growing up, it was a hero job, right?
Right.
Now it's looked at as like, we're against the police and you're racist and it's corrupt. Like, there's corruption in every career field. Don't get me wrong, but the majority of those men and women who wear that badge always call when always come when we call for help, right? They deserve to have our respect and admiration and support. So I'm glad you hit on that and talked about that, because I think that's huge, because we have to focus a new culture to get back to what it used to be. And, even Mike Rogers, who is running for Senate again. And I've been very public on this. I did not vote for Mike in the primary. I voted for him in the general. I had my other candidate that I liked and aligned with, but I liked Mike's talk about like the old FBI, right? Because when we were growing up, it was cool to be an FBI agent, right? But now with all the corruption and everything else, you don't like, Matt, I don't even want to bring it up. So I'm hoping and Cash Patel and Don Bongino are obviously doing a great job on redoing the culture with that. But we have to back to blue. And you just said that you basically would.
100%. I mean, we have to make sure that people are able to effectively do their jobs and that they're not going to be in fear that they're going to have a lawsuit or they're going to have something else terrible happen to them because, you have some woke activist. Again, no one is saying that they're for police brutality. Absolutely not. But at the same time, we want people to be effective at their jobs. And, your comments made me think of, I probably shouldn't say his name here on the show, but Jake Tapper, that liberal anchor on CNN. He actually was on a show recently I read about, saw the transcript. He's talking about his son. His son's a football player, apparently, wants to be a police officer. He shared that news with, a few of his liberal friends at some party or some dinner or whatever. And they were all asking, well, is he a racist? And da-da-da-da. Like, we have this word association between, hey, I like to be law enforcement or I like to do something in that area with racism, with misogyny, with, you're a terrible person, you're a fascist. We have to end those associations. So that's going to your point. We're not necessarily getting the same type of people. God bless the people who are doing it, but we need, even more people who are going to be dedicated to keeping us safe in our communities. And one thing that the Attorney General's office does, we provide to the local county prosecutors and the local police agencies training on the law regarding how to conduct searches and seizures, how to make sure that an arrest is going to be legitimate, the proper use of force, right? And I think to a certain extent, it's a good thing that, of course, we're going to have de-escalation techniques. You don't necessarily, if depending upon the threat, right? You don't have to pull out your gun right away. Perhaps you pull out your taser. I think that's fine. But this whole notion, and again, it's not necessarily happening, but people are talking about it. Well, we have to have a social worker deployed somewhere to talk to someone. Like, I don't need a social worker. I'm on the phone with 911 because I need help. Someone's getting beat up. Someone's getting robbed. I don't need someone to be like, so tell me how you're feeling today. We can deal with that later on. Right now, we have to address the exigency. So I stand with our folks in blue, and, I'm not going to get into the potential Democratic candidates for AG, but let's just say that they're very much woke folks. And they don't want to prosecute. They just sort of want to go after police and excoriate them for what they do, which I think is absolutely wrong.
100%. I mean, their whole ticket over there is pretty weak as of right now. But if we can get our stuff together and message and get behind the right candidates, I think we have the potential to really do some great things in the state of Michigan, because the first time in history we have not only a gubernatorial seat open, but also a Senate seat. And we trying to drop the ball in the last election cycle. Some people stayed home and refused to vote for Mike Rogers. And now we got Alyssa Slotkin, who's going to be in there for decades. Now we have the potential for this Mallory McMorrow, I think she's in her 30s, to be a representation of the state of Michigan for decades. And that's scary. And so we have to get behind the right candidates. I'm going to put you on the spot, Kevin, because that's my job. All right. Sure. We have some people that have announced for governor, some people that are kind of contemplating run for governor. Who do you like right now?
There's a few people that kind of come to mind that I do like. This is not an endorsement or anything, and I haven't spoken to any of these folks, mind you.
Yeah, I put you on the spot, baby.
That's okay. One person I generally like is Rinke, and I'm going to say why. Because he is a business guy. He ran a very successful business. He knows his numbers. He knows his stuff, and he impresses me. Then you take a look at a few other individuals right now. And maybe they're not as well known, but Nesbitt from the legislature, I think he has a lot of good ideas and things to offer to bring to the table. But ultimately, whoever the Republican nominee for the gubernatorial race, whoever that's going to be, will be chosen by the primary voters. And that individual needs to make sure that they're going to be able to win a general election. Doesn't mean that you compromise your principles, but you're able to stick firm to your principles and then explain it in such a way so that the general population is going to be like, I understand what you're going to do for me, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or whatever else. So I'm okay with a handful of folks right now. I know we're very early in. The race is sort of getting kind of crowded right now. And I know that Rinke hasn't announced officially yet, and I don't know if he will or not. But I would encourage him to seriously look at that because I think he would be an excellent candidate. And again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I believe if we take a look at the primary for governor last time around, you and two other gentlemen, including Rinke, if you guys actually were able to, not saying that you should have because hindsight's 2020, if all of those voters would have gone for one candidate, then one of you guys would have been the nominee as opposed to Tudor Dixon. I'm not throwing shade on her or anything like that. But I mean, that's where people really need to unite. So I'm hoping that we have a good gubernatorial primary race and all this other stuff. I just hope the field is not going to be as crowded as before. That's all.
No, you hit a lot. I like Kevin too. I've spent a lot of time with Kevin over the past year on the road with him as we were going around to the Trump Force 47 trying to get President Trump elected. And I got to really know Kevin. And I agree with you, Kevin. Kevin Rinke, what we're talking about. But I agree with you, Kevin. Like, if and I told you this before the show, and I've been on my platforms and I've stated this. If I would have known Kevin like I know Kevin right now, Kevin Rinke, I probably wouldn't have ran. I probably would have supported him because he has the credentials. He's been in charge of big businesses, tens of thousands of employees. He knows how to manage. He has a successful background that he can prove. Not just, I hear this all the time with politicians. I have a successful background. I was an executive. Okay, like really? For
what you do.
A year? Right. Yeah, like give me some data. Like Kevin's very impressive with what he was able to do and what he continues to do. Great philanthropic activity all the time. He's just a great guy. So I agree with you. I hope Kevin Rinke runs for governor. If he does, he's going to have my 100% support. Eric Nesbitt. Here's Eric Nesbitt. I know Eric. I like Eric. Great legislature, good conservative. Here's what I think Eric should do, because there's rumors. Okay, we're getting the political rumors now that Huizenga may throw his hat in the ring for U.S. Senate. If that happens, it's going to open up a seat. That's in my district. Now, people are like, Garrett, you need to run. I'm not running this election cycle. I think Eric Nesbitt should run for Huizenga's seat. I think he's a shoo-in for that congressional seat. And then we have a great conservative that can pick up what Congressman Huizenga has done, because Congressman Huizenga has done a great job. But if he announces for U.S. Senate, I hope Eric Nesbitt does what's right for the people and drops out. That's why John James, I don't agree with his strategy right now. Now, the rumor with that is the Trump team and a lot of people in Congress are very upset, along with a lot of people are very upset with John because he's leaving a congressional seat that we need. And so it's open to take. And we're all about continuing President Trump's agenda. And that to me is just, you're doing it for your own self-interest, and that's not for we the people. And I just have a problem with that. I invited John James on my show to have a conversation. He has not come on yet. So we'll see. And I'm having Mike Cox on the show next week. Then Kevin Rinke is going to come on the show the following week. And so I have everyone who has announced, who is thinking about announcing, except for John James. And why are you afraid to have a conversation with we the people? So I will continue to call him out. He's invited to come on my show. So I had to put that in there. That's for sure. But I would support Kevin if he runs. That's for sure. And I hope that he does. So thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.
You have a tough road ahead of you. You have to go in front of the delegates, which is always a good time. But I think the delegates are going to love you and what you stand for. But real quick, I have to hit on this because I am a pro Second Amendment guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Two things I want to know. Constitutional carry in the state of Michigan, yes or no, do you support it?
I support it.
Red flag laws, do you support them or no? No red flag laws.
The way that they're written right now, absolutely not.
My man. And to let everyone know, in theory, when you look at the red flag laws, you're like, yeah, we don't want crazy people to get a hold of weapons, right? And you're like, yeah, but who determines who's crazy? Because it's been proven that we have a corrupt judicial system. Somebody reported to me to the FBI, said I was a radical right-wing extremist. The FBI came to my house and interviewed me because somebody made a phone call from a post that I did. And if they come in and take my guns, which I don't have any guns,
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry.
But go ahead. But then you get in front of a corrupt judge and they take away your Second Amendment, which is not good.
The thing that really gets me about the red flag laws, and I'm not going to nerd out on all this stuff, versus like a regular personal protection order. Personal protection order, you have the ability to actually challenge and actually go in front of a judge and do all that other stuff. Red flag, you really don't. Red flag typically is going to be law enforcement that does that. And then they're going to get essentially that red flag or essentially the extreme PPO. And then they do anticipatory search warrant. They actually sign a warrant to say you can search whatever in the house looking for a gun. We don't know if they actually maybe have guns or not, but go look through the house and find guns. I mean, this law is ripe for abuse. I know that in terms of the circuit courts here, like Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne, they're really struggling with it right now. They really are. And there are ways to make sure that people don't have, guns if they're crazy. So, for example, if the police believe, wow, this guy is a nut job, and we think that he or she's going to be doing something, well, then, frankly, try to do a psych hold, right? As well, if someone committed a crime, then go arrest that person, right? I mean, do these real basic things. I believe that we have enough there in terms of our existing law to make sure that red flag laws can sort of either be completely modified or go away. I mean, we have the Second Amendment here in the United States and also in the state of Michigan for a good reason, to protect ourselves. And we don't want to have, again, with the politicization and the weaponization of government. I've seen this with, the Attorney General doing this to Trump electors or COVID folks. If you disagree with someone, what can they do to you? They can try to take away your guns and sort of have a false premise. So that's not what we should be doing at all. And if folks want to read more about like how I stand on this and whatever else, go to my website, kevin4mi.com, and I sort of have a brief description there. And as well, if I could do a quick plug. So tonight, I'm actually going to be in Farmington Hills for the Farmington Area Republican Club. I love to meet folks. If you're able to come out 6 o'clock at the Farmington Hills branch library, the Farmington branch library, not the Farmington Hills one. And then I'm going to be on the west side of the state. I'm going to be kind of in Jackson on June 12th at 6 p.m. To talk and meet and greet folks. And then even this weekend, it's a Saturday, I'm doing the Lincoln Day dinner in Van Buren County. And that'll be great. And I'm going to be talking about the same things. And I welcome people's questions, because the more folks I listen to across the state, I don't care if it's the 9th Congressional District, the 1st, the 4th, the 5th, wherever, they all have the same concerns. They all want to know about, like, how can we make sure that draconian efforts during COVID never happen again? How do we stop the politicization of, our judicial and our legal system? And the third thing people really want to do, how are you going to make us safer? Because even though, and people hear this in the media, oh, crime has gone down. Crime is still way up from 8 years ago. Violent crime is still way up. There was maybe a little bit of a tick down, and they're only showing that little segment. We have to get violent crime down. You know how we do that? We actually enforce the law and prosecute. But that's what I would invite people to do. Take a look at kevin4mi.com, and happy to talk to people wherever I go across the state.
I just posted the website in the comment section. It's kevin4mi.com, correct?
Yeah. So if Kevin Rinke runs, I'm sorry, but I already took that particular website. But with that being said, Garrett here, the good doctor, has some good advice for me. Get a Twitter account. And I haven't had Twitter ever, or a very long time. I haven't had Facebook ever. I only have LinkedIn. But, with this race gearing up, there will be, the X platform, there will be the TikToks and all that other stuff, right? So I'll make sure to do that, and I'll be typing my own tweets, or I don't know what you call them, X posts or something. But
for everyone watching, I told Kevin as soon as he gets his platforms up, I'll be posting them on my platform so people can find them. But you can go to his website, kevin4mi.com right now to learn about him. Contact him if you want him to speak. He is going to be obviously on the road hammering down, as we say, over the next year and a half. Thank you so much for your time, my man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and a big fan of your show. And thanks for all that you're doing. And I'll continue watching and keep up the great work.
God bless you, brother. Awesome. Man, that was a great conversation. That's why I love having these folks on. So you guys can just sit back, listen, because I ask fair, tough questions because I'm you. I represent you. And so I'm always going to ask the tough questions and get these folks to tell us what they're going to do. That's why, again, I've invited John James on the podcast. He's more than welcome to come. I know he's busy, or he says he's busy with Congress and everything else, but hey, give us 30 minutes. I think I've have several 100,000 followers. That's a pretty good chunk of a voting block here in the state of Michigan in the primary. That's for sure. So I'm hoping that he comes on the show because everyone else has or is coming on the next 2 weeks. So I'll continue to put out that, John James, you're invited to come on the show and have a conversation. I think we, the people, deserve to have some of the questions that are floating around out there answered by you personally, not scripted, totally raw, uncensored. I think that's what we all want, because here's what I posted this morning. Listen to this. The 2026 projection of social media, 60 to 65% of voters will primarily rely on social media for their political information and news. 60 to 65%. Only 30 and 35% will rely on corporate media, which is the fake news. Only 10% will have mixed. So over 60 to 65%. So if you're not growing a social media platform, that's what I just kind of hit Kevin on before the show and during the show. So you got to get relevant. You got to get on social media. And he's doing a great job getting on podcasts and everything else and having conversations. But you have to grow a platform. If you're thinking about running, you get on social media. And there's more you have to do than just grow a platform. You have to raise money and do all that stuff. But it is where people are going to get to know you and get your messaging out. So what I'm going to do for Kevin is I'm going to cut this video up and post him over the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping he gets a couple of those platforms up and running here in the next couple of days, and I'll tag him in those posts. But I have to give a shout out to one of our volunteers, Dave Garr. He's on the southeast side of Michigan, and he operates a Dream Limousine and Sedan service. All right. So if you're looking for a ride or a tour, you're going to fancy limo, give Dave Garr a call. He is a fantastic human being, a patriot. He's been operating his business, which is called a Dream Limousine and Sedan, serving Southeast Michigan for over 20 years with late model sedans, SUVs, vans, limos, and party buses up to 40 passenger capacity. Holy cow, Dave, if you're watching, which I know you are, I wish I would have utilized some of that with our tour because it would have been great. But man, he's got a great gig going over there in Southeast Michigan, which is the Detroit area. And I put his information in the description of this podcast. Okay. But his website is www.adreamlimo.com. And I also included his phone number, which is 734-542-6800. Wanted to give my man a shout out because he supported me, volunteered for me. So I like to give folks some airtime with their businesses, good American patriots. So if you need a ride, if you want to get a limo, a party bus, get a hold of my man, Dave. Folks, that was a great show. Like I said during the show, Mike Cox is going to be coming on next week. Kevin Rinke, I think, is going to be coming on soon. And then hopefully John James soon after that. So we'll see how this little political drama unfolds. But I'll continue to do my part is give you up-to-date, accurate, truthful information. So God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan. Of course, and always, God bless these United States. Till next time.